All right, Hotep, how's everybody doing today? Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. It is Sunday, April 29th, 2018. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. Be sure to tune in to the African History Network show every Sunday night, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We broadcast on Facebook Live, and we're on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation in Detroit. Okay, so visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. For information on how to listen. We'll be on the air live tonight. But I want to let you know that I'm doing a lecture coming up Sunday, May 6th in Detroit. Sunday, May 6th, 2018, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., dealing with the film Black Panther. Okay, and I've done a few of these presentations. This is the large presentation, the 3-hour one, a Black Panther analysis, African culture, history, and Afrofuturism. A Black Panther analysis, African culture, history, and Afrofuturism. Okay, so this is a very, very important presentation because the film Black Panther is an international success. It's many people have seen it across the country. We know it's the #3 highest grossing film in U.S. history. It beat out Titanic. It is done about $1.3 billion worldwide. It was #1 at the box office for 5 weeks. To date, it's the most successful Marvel movie. It set the record for pre-ticket sales. It was broken by Avengers, but as far as Marvel movies gone, it's the most successful Marvel movie as well. And we see this predominantly African-American cast. And we see an African nation never conquered by colonialism, never conquered by Europeans, never conquered. They were not victims of the transatlantic slave trade. So I deal with a number of different elements and themes in the presentation, and this movie connects to African culture. You had at least 11 different African cultures that were influences on what we saw in the movie. They influenced the style of dress that we saw, all different types of things like this. Okay, it's all in the film. All right, so Black Panther is bringing a sense of pride to African Americans and African people around the world who see it. Also, it's causing a Black Money movement in Brazil. Some of you may have heard me talk about the Black Money movement in Brazil that it has spawned, and in Chicago. In August 2018, there's going to be a Wakanda convention called the Wakanda Con in Chicago. African Americans were showing up wearing African garb to movie premieres of this film and buying African clothing from African American and African-owned stores, also outlets. Okay, so we've seen. I've done stories where we deal with the impact that the film is having on African-American owned businesses, certain African-American owned businesses, because they have seen a increase in business as well. Okay, so this film, already Black Panther 2 has already been announced that it's going to be made. Ryan Coogler is going to be the director of that. We know that Black Panther is also in Avengers Infinity War as well. So people are seeing this is seeing the Black Panther and some of the characters once again. All right, and I've already seen Avengers Infinity War. I went to go see it Thursday night. Okay, so in this presentation, what I do is I analyze the blockbuster film Black Panther. I look at many themes depicted in the film. Okay, I look at the African cultural influence. Look at African spirituality. All of this is in the film. Okay, we see. That to understand the movie, you have to understand the Black Panther comic book. You have to understand something about the Black Panther comic book. And I've seen a number of different social media posts about the movie, and I could tell a lot of these people did not read the Black Panther comic book, haven't researched the Black Panther comic book. You have to understand that to understand the film. Okay, so in preparation for this presentation that I'm doing Sunday, May 6, 2018 in Detroit at the new Nandi's Knowledge Cafe, located at 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. Okay, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., 71 Oakman Avenue, Highland Park, Michigan. It's a free event, donations accepted. Come on out. Okay, in preparation for this, #1, articles dealing with the film Black Panther. I saw the film twice. I'll probably go see it again before I do this presentation. And also, I had to study the history of the film Black Panther. So this book here deals with the 52-year history of the film, of the comic book, and it deals with storylines, characters, things like this. This is from Marvel, the Ultimate Black Panther Guide, okay, from Marvel. Because you have to understand the comic book to understand the film. These characters are not, and you have storylines with variations to it. The comic book also. So we'll look at the African cultural influences that we see in the film. We see cultural influences coming from the Dogon of Mali and Burkina Faso. We see them coming from the Ndebele of South Africa. We see them coming from the Zulu of South Africa. We see them coming from the Maasai of Kenya and Tanzania. And then we'll look at the African spiritual influence as well. We'll look at the role of African women in the film Black Panther. What can African Americans learn from this film also? To really understand the movie, we'll look at the history of the Black Panther comic book, some recent interviews, and the African global response as well. All right, so when we look at the Black Panther character, this character was first introduced July 1966 in issue 52 of the Fantastic Four, Volume 1, Issue 52 of the Fantastic Four, July 1966, character created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby for Marvel Comics. Now, this was the first time we saw an African superhero in mainstream comic books. We didn't have one. So 1966 is a very important year. So this is the year after the Voting Rights Act was passed and signed into law, August of 1965, okay? This is the year after Malcolm X was assassinated. He was assassinated February 21st, 1965 at the Audubon Ballroom. This is 2 years after the Civil Rights Act of 1964, July 1964, the Civil Rights Act. This is 3 years after Medgar Evers was assassinated in June of 1963. This is during the Civil Rights Movement and right towards the beginning of the Black Power movement, okay? So the Black Panther character was not, they didn't take that name from the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was not founded until October 16, 1966 in Oakland, California by Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale. Okay, this character came out before that. Okay, so he's in the first issue he's in, issue 52 of the Fantastic Four. He fights against the Fantastic Four and defeats them in their own comic book. We've never seen anything like this. He fights the Fantastic Four, defeats them in their own comic book. He's a master of different forms of hand-to-hand combat and martial arts. He has superhuman strength because of the heart-shaped herb that he takes. And the Black Panther is the protector of this fictitious African nation named Wakanda, okay? And then he talks about, this is from basically the last page of issue 52. The story continues in issue 53. He talks about how I am, as you see me, hereditary chieftain of the Wakandans, and perhaps the richest man in all the world. But it was not always so. My tale is one of tragedy and deadly revenge. So when we talk about, this relates to history, we talk about the richest man in all the world. Who was that? So that's Mansa Musa, emperor of the Mali Empire, becomes emperor 1312 AD. Okay, and see, what we have to understand is that many African Americans, their minds are open now to learning about African history and culture. Many of our children, their minds are open to learning about their history and culture, largely because of this film. So the real teachers have to teach. So Mansa Musa becomes emperor 1312 AD, emperor of Mali, richest man in the world. We know when he goes on his Hajj to Mecca, right? He throws off the economies of the areas he's going through because he's giving out so much gold, especially when he gets to Mecca. He's giving out so much gold. Okay, so we have to deal with this type of history. And then you have many African Americans saying, well, how can we use our $1.3 trillion economy? How can we use this to benefit us? They see that in Wakanda, they see them controlling They see them having their history and culture. They see them controlling their politics and their economy. See them controlling technology. So many African Americans are saying, well, wait a second. How can we control the politics in our communities? How can we control the economics? This is causing people to ask many questions. So the History Channel has an article that talks about Mansa Musa. Came out March of 2018. And it says, in the vast fictional universe of Marvel Comics, T'Challa, better known as Black Panther, is not only king of Wakanda, he's also the richest superhero of them all. And although today's fight for the title of wealthiest person alive involves a tug of war between billionaire CEOs, the wealthiest person in history, Mansa Musa, has more in common with Marvel's first Black superhero. So this is not African-centered scholars saying Mansa Musa was the richest man in the history, wealthiest man in the history of the world. Even the channel has to acknowledge that. Okay, so even though the film is fictitious, it connects to African history. It connects to African culture. This is what people have to understand. Okay, so this is more than just a movie. All right. So then we look at something like the word Wakanda. Okay, so even though Wakanda is a fictitious nation, all right, and in the movie it is its geographical location is near Rwanda. The word Wakanda is not a made-up word. The word Wakanda is in Native American languages. It's in the Sioux Indian language. It's in the Omaha Ponca language. It's also in the Bantu language. I talked to a brother who is Congolese. He's from the Congo. And he said it's a Bantu language. And he said it's a word in the Bantu language. And I figured it was because Wakanda, I found out, is related to the word Rwanda, Uganda, and Buganda. And it makes sense. But then when you understand the history, that the first Americans were African people, and that African people were here in the Americas before Native Americans came into existence, and that African people and Native Americans are the offspring of an intermixing of Africans who were already here and Asians who come here around 3000 BC, okay? And then you see the relationship between the languages, then you realize, okay, yeah, so the African word probably predated the Native American word, okay? This is why Dr. David Imhotep's book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, is so important, okay? And when I do presentations, I talk about his book. I know him, he's a friend of mine. I've interviewed him a number of times. When I teach my online courses, we reference his book also, okay? The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. And this book deals with the African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years ago. The Khoisan, who have the oldest DNA on the planet. They come from Southern Africa. Let me show you this here. Okay. Some of you have seen this before. All right. And this is extremely important because we have to understand the chronology of history. Okay. So these are all some of the things we deal with in the presentation that I'm doing Sunday, May 6th. At the new Nandi's Knowledge Cafe, 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. Highland Park is an enclave of Detroit, right off of Hamilton Avenue, right off of Hamilton, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Free event, donations accepted. Come on out. We see African cultural influence. We see it from Nigeria. We see it from the Basotho of Lesotho, which is inside of South Africa. We see it with the blankets that the herders, who are the warriors that guard the boundary of Wakanda, they're wearing these blankets that come straight out of the culture of Southern Africa. Okay, we'll talk some about Afrofuturism, and at the Wakanda Con taking place in Chicago, coming up August of this year, there's going to be a Wakanda convention called the Wakanda Con. And they're going to be dealing with Afrofuturism there. Okay. So Afrofuturism was a term coined by cultural critic Mark Dury in his 1994 essay, Black to the Future. And it refers to an aesthetic that infuses science fiction and fantasy with cultures of the African diaspora. And it imagines basically a different future for African people. Okay, it infuses African culture, African diaspora culture, as well as science fiction. Okay, when we look at the Dora Milaje, and I'll show this to you in just a minute again. When we look at the Dora Milaje, who are the African female warriors, who are the personal bodyguards of the king, and they help protect Wakanda as well. This comes from it's believed that this is based upon the Amazons of Dahomey, the Mino or the Ohozi, who were African female warriors from about the 17th century to the 19th century. Dahomey is modern day Benin, okay? And they fight alongside the men. They fight in wars. They fight in the Franco-Dahomean War of 1890, different things like this. And these were fierce African female warriors. So these are some of the things that we're going to deal with, and a lot more. You have African spirituality, African spiritual influences coming from the not just Bast or Bastet, which comes from ancient Kemet, who is a feminine deity or Netaru, and we see that Bastet is the deity that watches over Wakanda. Okay, but also you have in the comic book, you have other deities like Ptah and Thoth, who in ancient Kemet was called Tahuti. But we see that these deities collectively are known as the Orishas. The Orishas come straight out of Yoruba culture in Nigeria in a spiritual system called Ifa. So you have African culture, you have African history incorporated into this. The culture relates to the history. So these are some of the things we're going to deal with and break down. Sunday, May 6, 2018, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the new Nandi's Knowledge Cafe, located at 71 Oakland Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. Okay, right in this inside of Detroit. Come on out, free event, donations accepted. We have this presentation on DVD for those that can't make it. It's a 3-hour presentation I did. Black Panther analysis, African culture and history, and Afrofuturism. Okay, it's available right now at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and those that can't make it, we also have a Black Panther bundle pack. You get the 8 DVD bundle pack. We have that on sale right now at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, so you can check that out. Okay, we have a bundle pack going on. All right, so the film Black Panther, man, is powerful. Our children want to learn. Are go to African garb. Okay, so this is extremely powerful. Right. So this is extremely powerful. Okay, can you all hear me? Book page. Invite your friends to tune in. Those in the Detroit area, come on out Sunday, May 6th. Sunday, May 6th at the new Nandi's Knowledge Cafe also. And we have this presentation available at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com as well. It's right on the homepage as well. Okay, we have to get out of here. Hey, listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9:10 a.m. Superstation. We broadcast here on Facebook Live also. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.